Thank you very much, and welcome to our final session of the day. And we have a splendid closing act, someone who has been a leading figure for DAM in the entertainment industry for many years. Stan Scoggins, SVP of Worldwide Marketing Assets for Universal Pictures. And as I pass the mic to Stan, please do keep your questions coming in the Q&A box. Stan, over to you.
All right, thank you, Graham. Yeah, I have been at this for a while. We began development of the dam system here at Universal back in 1996. I worked on it for a couple of years, and we went live finally in 1998. So we're coming up on our 25th year anniversary as a digital asset management system. Just to give you some background about what drove it then, and then what's happened now, or where we are now, what got us here, is that we first started when there were shrinking windows in the motion picture industry. Home entertainment and international started to need access to materials before theatrical was done creating their own materials. Um, this happened because home entertainment used to only market to uh, rental shops, VHS rental shops, actually, at that. So they wouldn't even start working on the campaign until they saw billboards go up around town for whatever was releasing theatrically. They'd start thinking about it. Theatrical would have everything ready. The film was released. They could hand everything over. And all of that was fine. And they had all of this time just to market. And they only had to market to retailers. So that was also different. The advertising and everything was all trade ads. And the same thing was starting to happen with international. Instead of waiting a year um, and cycling prints around as soon as it was done, showing here, going around slowly, the international territories started to release day and date to combat piracy and to build excitement for our content. So all of a sudden, instead of having a year gap for home entertainment and in many cases for territories, it went from 4 to 6 months. And because we started to do sell through, I'm sorry, that's the reason for the 4 to 6 months, we started to sell directly to consumers. So we really needed to build a lot because we were now driving consumers not only to rent the tapes and later the discs, but we were trying to drive them to Target and Best Buy and the grocery store and trying to get them to actually purchase and bring the revenue into us that way. So this obviously everybody needed to see the same material at the same time. Motion pictures was frustrated because the marketers were having to give up their assets to get huge batches of duplicates made so that they could send them out. It was expensive, it was time consuming, and home entertainment might get 5 sets of dupes because that they didn't want to pay for 100. And then people were still having to share those. So the department became a digitization center first. Let's digitize them. Let's have a website so that everybody can see it at once. And that was the birth of our online repository, which I learned how to do this. There we go, which we call Solar, this is what it looks like now. So our initial scope was actually just to get the approved photography, the key art, the one sheets, and just make that so that everyone could see everything and regionalize their content or change it into packaging or advertise it at the same time. But suddenly home entertainment said, hey, this is a great way to save our assets because if we reprice the DVD or if we need to go back and re-promote this because a sequel comes out, we want a place to store our own assets. So instead of just being this one kind of single purpose conduit, we became more of an archive and a repository. So we service marketing departments both internationally and domestic for Universal Pictures, for Focus Features, for our home entertainment groups, and now Peacock Original Films. And here's an example of the different things we have. Some photography, we have artwork, like the one sheet, one of the international one sheets for Jurassic. We have AV material, trailers and TV spots. We have home entertainment packaging, and we have online, like the minions here for all the different, for Twitter, for Snapchat, for all the different things. Those all now come back to us so that people can share them and regionalize them. So I guess we were talking about that. So it used to just be a curated set of files even then. So we would get a set, people would say, these are approved, everybody can use them, this is what we should have. So it was, we were growing, but we weren't growing dramatically. But in 2004, digital photography got um, was advanced enough that it could be used for billboards, for one sheets, which is what we call the movie pictures, um, or the movie posters, sorry. So all of the sudden, instead of reels of film coming into the lab and the lab giving either sleeves of slides or contact sheets to the marketing department where they could edit them and tell them, all of a sudden things were coming in on first CDs, then DVDs, then jazz drives and zip disks, and which a lot of people didn't have on their computer. So all of a sudden, rather than them curating everything and giving it to us, the material was coming to us. We were having to ingest it. So all of the marketing departments actually had to come to us to find out what it was that had been submitted to them from the production. So that um, we started to take off like exponentially at that point, because all of a sudden, instead of after the fact getting approved material, we were getting the material and we became part of the approval process. And sort of since then, because all of these things only came to us digitally, including, I might say, add the before there were plates and you could go back to your printer and they kept color separations and everything. Suddenly digital prepress was the industry standard. So again, to get something from one printer to another, it was coming through us rather than going back to your original printer because we had the files. And now, like I said, we are the basically we are the archives and collections for all of this born digital material. Make sure I'm good on time. I am. So our current state is that Solar has 14 million assets. We have, actually, I checked last Friday, 9,230 different titles. We add about 800,000 assets each year. And last year, we had 1.8 million orders for reuse of the product. So it gets used quite heavily. We have 2,000 users and we take up 500 terabytes of space. So, as all these things came to us, the user base was growing, the complexity of the categories. We had to really look and talk to our users and find out what it was they needed to see. And one of the things that came up was that people were seeing maybe too much. So we had to start setting up security groups appropriate to each user's role. And I say security, most people still wanted to see only the approved things that someone had edited, had curated, and here's the 100, 200 max things that I can use. But they wanted to just find the things that they were looking for. They knew it was there. They just wanted a way to get to it quickly. So even though we have 14 million assets, a lot of people are on the curated set, which is under 3 million. It's still a lot, but other users still, they're building work in progress. They have to see everything they want to. Um, and we also tried to set up with business units. So if you're in focus, you don't want to see all of the universal titles, or you don't have to. So we can enable them only to see their titles. They don't have to scroll through as many titles to get to what it is they want. Similarly, motion pictures, Universal doesn't have to look at focus. However, other teams like international and home entertainment, they have to see all of them. So we have several different groups where we talk to them. We say, what is it that you want to see? What is it that you want to get to? And basically, how can we eliminate that? And I could spend a lot of time telling you what all we went through, but it's very complex and it's something that we constantly have to update, and we always have to get IT involved to build out these crazy search strings. So that's just where now. Um, Moving on, because we have so many, another thing that we found is we really taxonomy is so important, metadata and taxonomy. And I know I'm preaching to the converted because everyone who goes to a damn conference knows this, but it is important. And people stopped really wanting to search. People wanted to have a browse tree, so they wanted to get exactly where they needed to go, and they wanted some help. They wanted not necessarily hand holding, but what is it? How can I get to it? And let me see a list that I can quickly go through rather than having to come up with the search that would get me where I want to go. So most users, they want to see it by title and by asset type. So I'll give you kind of an example. So we've got the browse tree here, and you can see if you're going in and what you're looking for is the little image that starts out, so you can click play on a trailer and you need it for France. You're not going through everything for this is Minions, but oh, I'm thinking you can see my trailer. So if you need the French one, here you go. There's 5 files. I wanted to make the screen fit, but these are your options. So that's great. You go, you get it, you check out, you're done. Likewise, here I did just chose randomly. Generally, people who are doing ads, they want either horizontal or vertical art or square based on, are you doing a banner? What is it you're trying to have fit? And if you're Bulgaria and you want to get to the horizontal looks that we have for Bulgaria, here you go. So this was key to people. Like they want this help. They want to be able to say, how can I just with a few clicks get to everything, the 34 files that I can use to do this, and just search through those. Excuse me. So another thing that we learned is with this browse tree, everybody said, do you have a free text field? Can you do it? And we had one, but it really proved to be too complex. People got more than they wanted. They couldn't get exactly, and they were having to go back and refine their searches again and again and again. And there were things, people were misspelling. So we have actually we've we had it and we got rid of it because it was just constantly people calling saying this isn't working for me. How can I get to what I want? And the browse tree generally gets them there. Um, and as an example, someone might type in Invisible Man and they want to get the Elizabeth Moss Invisible Man, not the Invisible Woman, from 2020. So if they start typing, they're going to get everything for the titles that I have listed here, if with the free text. And having this, so if you want, let's say you want the one sheet and there's Elizabeth Moss, but all of these other titles would come up when you look for that, and it's not what you want. You knew what you want, and you should go to it. Likewise, I mean, we have here the Invisible Man, Abbott and Costello meet the Invisible Man. It's a similar situation where not all of their titles, but a lot of their titles started with Abbott and Costello. So if you're trying to type that in and you have to type in all of Abbott and Costello, and you have to remember that it's 2 B's and 2 T's in Abbott, Meet the Invisible Man, it, you're going through a lot. Whereas if you can simply go Abbott and Costello here, everything's listed out. You can find that. And then something else, just because it's on here, that I'll point out, Abbott and Costello meet the monsters. You can see they've met Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. They've met Frankenstein. They've met Boris Karloff, the killer, and the mummy. So we have things called collections where you can build these things in. So if you're looking across titles, that you can find what it is that you need. And I'll go through with franchise titles, this happens a lot. Jurassic Park, and we have Jurassic World, and then we have Lost World, and things are all over the place. So it's hard. So you need to build something so that the user can say, let me just go and see all of the titles. And just something that illustrates this well is our Fast and Furious franchise. So the first one, fine, Fast and the Furious, you search for that. Then we have Too Fast, Too Furious, but it's not TOO, it's the number two, and it doesn't sort with Fast and Furious, but Fast and Furious are still in the title, so you could still get there. Um, but then Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift still worked. I just have a note here for anybody who's building a system. We have a lot of colons, and our upload system is based on hot folders, and the hot folders were all of the titles, but Windows would not accept a colon, so we had to come up with a workaround with that. And I go through, but basically, you needed to have a way that made your hot folder not have to be identical. That was a little work for us. But moving on, Fast and Furious. I bring this up just because of the ampersand in the database that we use for the search. The ampersand was a wild card, so that was also a problem. Fast five, moving, so we could still maybe get to somewhere for the users with the search with fast. Fast and Furious 6, no problem. We'd solved the ampersand and still had fast. Then Furious 7 comes along. No fast, just Furious. Then we have F8, which luckily the fate of the Furious. So we still had Furious, but again, no fast. At Fast and Furious Hobbs and Shaw, they put in Fast and the Furious Presents was helpful, but a lot of people still search Hobbs and Shaw. And then F9, no fast, no furious. And now we're at Fast X, which fine, it has fast. But all of this means if you want to get to look at assets across that, you need the collection. You've got to have it. So we have two different types of titles. So we have the Fast and Furious collection. And then as you can see, it lists all of them. So if you're looking for something that goes across everything, you have that option. You can go to it. You can also, of course, go to the individual title if that's what you're looking for. But if you're trying to put something together that goes cross collection, this is very helpful to have two different types of things. And you can see on the side we have collection versus title, and it makes they mean different things. So this collection, we have it set up, it will inherit all of the titles that are part of the collection. This is particularly helpful when we do a DVD collection with multiple titles in it. So then we can upload it, everything's there, and we don't have to upload the same asset to 10 different titles, 10 or 11 actually, if you include Hobbs and Shaw. It's also helpful for, I put Alfred Hitchcock in here just because Topaz, Torn Curtain, Psycho, Vertigo, they're all over the place. And someone doesn't want to have to go to the browse tree each time. If you can go to the Alfred Hitchcock collection and you can get things across all of them, if that's what you want to market. And then even back to Best of Abbott and Costello, we have, I think, 4 different volumes with all these different titles. And again, not all of them start with Abbott and Costello. So moving kind of back to the franchise, and how we doing? We're on good on time. Sorry, let's see, moving back to the franchise. So sometimes people for these would want to search for a character. Maybe they're doing an event with Vin Diesel and Michelle Rodriguez, Dom and Letty. We had to put in the role. We had to go back. We added that. So you didn't necessarily just want Vin Diesel. You might not want him from Riddick. You really just want to see him as Dominic Toretto. So we put that in and everything's in there and you can search for it so that you can see the person in that particular role. And going here, maybe you're searching for on the left, Vin Diesel as himself. He's at an event. Or if you want him as Riddick, you can search for him across the Riddick titles, or you can get him down below in Fast and Furious. Let's see. So anyway, our users, they do find that helpful, and this was a request that they were very happy to be able to get to. So now we talked a little bit about hot folders, and I guess, well, we'll just talk about it. We have hot folders, and when you drop an asset into the hot folder for a title, in this case F9, the drop list only the actors who appear in F9 that we populate that, we pre-populate it. All the information, everything that you know about the title and the asset before you drop it in can be done with this hot folders, and all of that metadata is automatically applied as it gets uploaded. So no one has to go back and put it there. And for metadata entry, which we're ingesting 3,000 to 5,000 a day, we've got to be able to do it quickly and accurately. So in this case, when you have that, at least you have, when you get Vin Diesel, it automatically knows he's Dominic Toretto. You type V, it gives you Vin Diesel. You can add it. John Cena plays Jacob. You don't get back to the future that I showed in the beginning. You don't see the actors for and roles of other titles, and this was actually more difficult than I thought it would be to get our developers and vendors to be able to do that. They thought, oh, why wouldn't you want to see every actor that you've ever had in any movie? But it makes it really, really complicated when you're trying to put metadata, individual metadata on 3,000 to 5,000 images. So again, this comes back. We know this is F9. A lot of it's there. It can get sorted in, but someone has to go back and say, who are the 2 people in the image, or the cast for this movie is so huge, it could be 12 people. But who's in it, and has it gone through the stage of approval it needs to? Let's see. It also misspellings. So another thing that. I think we've still got time. Good. Is for you guys who are thinking about this, or for you developers, is when it comes down to the content of an image, what's in there? One, you need to have multiple people in it. Two, these three, for us at least, talent, role, and approval status are combined, and they have to be something that comes along with the images. We can't have one value that's Chris, Ludacris Bridges, Tej approved, one that's killed. They're three independent fields, but they're lined up and they are based such that you can look for, let me see all of the F9 images that are approved. This wouldn't show up because, as you can see, Rita Moreno is pending, Sung Kang is killed, and Vin Diesel is pending. You might also want to see, where are all the Vin Diesel pendings? What have we not heard back on? Where can we follow up? Or you might just be looking for pictures of Letty because that's all you just want to see her approved shots, because you're going to be cropping other people out. You're going to be taking that, putting it into something else. So all of these things need to be searchable, or you may want to look for Letty, all approved Letty across all titles. So these three are connected, but they're still individually searchable. And this was a lot of work to get this to happen. We can, in any case, I think it's just something, if you're building a system, it's something to think about. If you have approvals, like what are the different things, but link them. You can't just say an image is killed or approved, because these go to actors. Each one of them gets a chance to approve or kill their own image. So moving forward, the other thing I would say, that we found, is we needed to make our own previews, not for everything, mind you. For photography, it's for a lot of things you don't need to, but there's two things in particular. Well, I guess three, but mainly AV files. Before you can pick, there's a lot of systems that just give you that first frame, and you can pick or you can drag through and select it, but it doesn't really tell you what it is. And we do a lot of TV spots, but in this case, let's say you're looking through 10-second spots that are texted. We at least split that out for you, as you can see it. But I clicked on that. If you're scrolling through and you want the one that was named Malta, and there's Malta dubbed, there's Malta subtitled, to get to a tree that breaks it down, that's a lot of clicking. What users said is, I know I'm looking for, here I pulled up some Belgian French. I want to be able to go through, look at everything that's there. If it says it's dubbed, or if it's got the release date, if it says out now, they wanted to basically look and not have to play 50 10-second spots. It doesn't sound like a lot, but to play them and then fast forward to the end to get to whether or not it has the release date or the out now is frustrating for users. So for our video files, we found that putting this front card on all of them, and they can watch it and confirm, but to put this on the AV files and not auto-generate the preview is actually much better for our users. The other thing is just for printing. I don't know how much experience, I've certainly learned a lot about printing, but in this case, this is the sleeve for Canada for the Grinch. But when printers, they'll include slug information. You can see there's some die cut lines in the green where the UPC code will go, or this red that's over it will indicate either embossment or a varnish or some special color. So when we get things in directly from the printer, many times the InDesign files or Quark files back in the day would have these and all kinds of extra thing. And if you're just the user going in and not the print production person, you're going to look at it and say, oh, this won't mean it at all. So we go through, we take all of those out, we clean it up. And as you can see, this is what the user wants to be able to get and see. So also for us, it's very important with artwork files to be able to have that where we can easily create our own preview, ingest it into the system, and have it basically to let the user know quickly when they look visually across 50 to 100 images, that's the one I want, click, I'm in, I'm out, I'm done. And really, actually, Graham, that's it. I mean, I can talk a little about other things if you want, or if I don't know if you have something you want to bring up.
Well, maybe we have time for maybe just a couple of questions. One thing that strikes me as you tell the story here is you talk a lot about making the experience work for your
Mhm.
users
Right.
and having them find what they want, having them be able to reach what
Helping
they
them.
want.
Yeah.
Right. What techniques do you recommend, our audience explore for how to get into their minds such that you can do that?
Um, you really have to go talk to them. I mean, you have to, um, one, I mean, I could go back to but in the very top, if you've got a question, you can either click the button and it generates an email that goes to me and to my team, or we put the phone number on there. But if someone gets frustrated, um, and it's easy for them to click and say, I'm trying to do this and I can't find it, that lets us know. Um, we also, when we went to DAM, there was, what was her name? There was the woman from Google. I'm blanking. I think I wrote it down. What was it? Kathleen Cameron. And she kind of reminded me that during pandemic, I'd stopped doing this because I was at home and I wasn't really walking around. But so it is when you set up a new user, if you can, go to the desk, sit with them. I mean, we're all over the place, but at least in the buildings I'm in, or get on Teams and say, it'll take 5 to 10 minutes. Let me walk you through it. And if you see what it is that they're doing and saying, uh, you see where they would go intuitively, you start to say, okay. Or they say, well, which one can I use? And you realize what it is you have to do. And that's how we realized that people were so frustrated with the AV files or the social media files. You
Mm,
get like a bundle. And visually, it got so small when it was all of the countdown, 9 days till minions, 8 days till minions, 7 days till minions. They didn't want to scroll through all of them. They said, just put all the countdowns, call it countdown. And then I know I'm ordering it and I'm getting the full package. But I mean, really what that is with new users and checking in with we run reports to see who's ordered the most. And we actually do it every week. We just check in on how many orders we've gotten and what they are. And so, again, I was sort of reminded at the LA conference that I have not been doing this, but I used to
mm,
say that and say, I see, boy, you've been ordering a lot of, whatever, how's it going? Is it working well? And, and that was where I would get my feedback, honestly.
mm. And maybe one final question. Another thing that you, I think, talked quite a bit about as you talked through your slides was how the business around you has evolved and changed, through the years. What have you found was effective for you in staying ahead of that? Like, how did you stay plugged into what's coming next so that you didn't have to sort of react to it?
Well, a lot of times, to be honest, I reacted, but um, but I'm lucky. My department, I think, is unique among the studios in that we are a part of the marketing department. So
Mm,
I am, um, I'm lucky in that when we have our weekly staff meetings, I'm there where I'm hearing what's coming. That said, with the shift to electronic sell-through, also that was during pandemic, but when we started releasing things 17 days after, I mean, that took everyone by surprise. But working with them and hearing this is the plan and here's what we're going to do. We're going to do Peacock original films, and they're
mm,
going to be marketed by our motion picture group, but differently. And this is what Peacock wants from us. I'm very lucky that I'm in those meetings, so I know what's coming, so I can come down and say, all right, this is, we need to reach out to the Peacock team, and two of the members came and actually did talk to us to explain what assets they needed and why. Things that I didn't know, and I have to actually congratulate them for it. But we were reaching out and tell us what you need. And I mean, what we did find out for Peacock, they need to have the title over part of it, and then they want kind of a clear close-up shot of the actors in it, but they want a lot of blank space on one side. So they didn't want vertical images, they wanted horizontal images. So, I mean, the nice thing is because I am down the hall from the group that does the photo editing for publicity, I was able to go and say, hey, when you guys do a trailer release image, make sure that you've got something that's horizontal, and where maybe there's a house or something over here that you can cover up that doesn't don't have the person centered. So a lot of it's communication,
Right.
and that's not easy, but um, we did. I mean, we knew when Peacock was coming, it was important, so we really reached out to anyone we could on their creative
Yeah,
team.
communication, and it sounds like proactive communication on your part too.
Yeah.
So you know
Correct.
what? Unfortunately, we've run out of time. I know, how can that be? I am looking forward to seeing Abbott and Costello meet the Fast and the Furious, by the way. So
Well, I'm sure it might be animated. It may be an animated Peacock original.
Stan, what an amazing story you have. Thank you so much for sharing
Sure.
that with us here today. And that concludes our presentations and panels for the day. DAM is clearly just as vibrant a discipline for M&E now as it has been for years, and it's fantastic to see innovation and futurism for our content management showing no signs of slowing down. We hope all of you have enjoyed this short but lively expedition through it all.
Graham, you're muted.
Uh-oh, what happened? I'm
I
back.
don't know. I was too, and I couldn't figure out how to tell you.
So, sorry for that. Just wrapping up, if you missed something or want to replay some parts you really enjoyed, you'll find recordings from today's event accessible on the agenda tab. Huge thank you to our speakers throughout the day, to our sponsors and exhibitors, the hardworking Henry Stewart production team who made all of this possible, and of course, all of you for carving out precious time to tune in. This was just the start. Tomorrow, Industry Week turns to DAM for CPG and retail with expert speakers from WL Gore, Mars Pet Care, Clinique, and more, with our shopping trolley expertly steered around the store by Neil Bilo. And then DAM for healthcare on Thursday with Dr. David Lipsey. You're all very welcome to join any and all of those sessions throughout the week. For now, though, we bring the curtain down on DAM for M&E. Thank you all, and see you soon, hopefully at one of the next in-person DAM events. Bye for now.